Welcome back. And when we talk about cybersecurity, most of the focus is on active threats, malware, phishing, and real-time attacks. But some of the biggest risks come from outdated exposed data that quietly lingers from old breaches. Many people still reuse passwords that were compromised years ago, and attackers know it. Joining me now is the Director of Product Marketing at SpyCloud, Colette Tomasiak. And we thank you so much for being with us, Colette.
Hi, thank you for having me.
All right, I'm glad to have you. Listen, now I don't want to give out my information across this TV, but I will say this. When it comes to passwords, I'm not always as frequent as I need to be when making that change. And I just wonder if you could unpack that for me. How dangerous is it for me not to always be resetting my passwords?
This is the problem. I think a lot of people don't realize how much security they sacrifice in favor of convenience. And for us, we expect everything digital to be available to us instantaneously. So access to our bank account, access to our Amazon account, Target, anything that we do every single day, social media, shopping, finance, everything, we want access right away. For us, for that to be easy, we often reuse passwords or some variations of passwords across all these different sites. And think of it, our digital footprint is so vast and it continues to expand. So if you use one password, let's say Apple 123 for Amazon, and that website or that brand gets breached, but you also have Apple 123 across other things, it is so easy. People don't understand how easy it is for a bad actor or a cyber criminal to test that across other accounts and get access to not only Amazon, but get access to your bank, to your social media, to literally anything that is important to you that ties together your holistic digital identity.
So I know that, organizations, they really go through these changes sometimes about changing and, really cleaning up. How often should an organization, a person go through and make these sweeps?
So this is the one thing that I think people don't also talk about enough, especially for an organization. For an enterprise or a business, people often forget that it's not just me at this current employment and my password here that could potentially be a risk to the business. It is also my personal life. Again, it's people aiming for and looking for that convenience. People often use their same passwords in their personal life in their work account, or it bleeds over into the devices that we use. Like we get corporate issued devices, but how many times am I checking stuff on my mobile phone because I'm out on the go or dropping my kid off at school or something after school activities? So it's often as you possibly can. It's important to set up regular cadences to check passwords, to prevent password reuse, to even just look for exposures. But the one thing I think for people to make it less overwhelming is you first want to understand what all has been exposed. I think the easiest place for a business or even a person, individual like yourself, to check what exposures are tied to your personal identity, go to checkyourexposure.com. You can't even begin to remediate or change passwords or reset accounts if you don't know what all has been exposed. So something simple like checkyourexposure.com gives you that kind of overview, and then you know where to go. And then you can kind of decide, cool, every 60, 90 days, I should be checking my passwords or resetting things, or at least looking or monitoring for exposures to make sure my information is not out there. And it's not just the cadence, it's also try and diversify your passwords. Use a password manager and make sure each account has a unique password tied to it.
I want to talk about the individual and then the company as well. How do I know as an individual potentially that I'm at risk? And let's talk the same for a company.
Yeah. So an individual or even a company, it's kind of the same for both. You're going to see an uptick in activity that is not normal. You're going to get notifications as an individual on your phone or a text message. Oh, you have to pay this unpaid toll. Cool. I've had coworkers get toll messages or like phishing SMS messages for geographies where they don't even have toll roads and they're getting these fake messages. You're going to see an uptick in oh, a text message from Amazon. Someone in this geographical location is trying to log onto your account. So you're going to see this anomalous behavior of activity and attempted access to your accounts from locations and places and devices that are not yours. For a business, they're going to start seeing an uptick in attempts. And again, it's tied to access. Someone trying to access a corporate application from a location that isn't normal for that employee. They're going to see potentially an uptick in fraud, in synthetic identities, all these activities that are outside the norm that probably are good indicators that you have stale credentials that are impacting your business or your personal accounts. And it is time to do a nice audit to get a grasp on things and remediate those exposed passwords.
So once I find myself and there's a breach, and we hear these breaches, what is the proper protocol after I hear? I might be tuning in to Open, and Daren Jaime says there's been a breach, and credit bureaus have been breached or banks have been breached. What should I, the consumer, do upon hearing?
Yeah. So first thing to note, it's not if, it's when. So it will
Okay.
happen. So that's people often forget that as well. I think, and even earlier, like last year, there was the national public data breach. Almost everyone, the majority of Americans' social security numbers were exposed, in addition to other PII and financial information. Step one, if you're notified and you're involved in a breach, is freeze your credit scores. Go to all three major credit bureaus and freeze your credit score, and unlock it only when needed. And then step two, again, you want to know what all has been exposed, which passwords on which accounts, on which websites, what you need to remediate. Checkyourexposure.com is an easy one to kind of give you insight to the exact breaches that you're tied to. And then you know where you need to change passwords on those accounts. So criminals can't get access and they can't do fraud. They can't cause havoc and other digital activities that could impact either yourself as a person or an enterprise.
For a person out there that's watching saying, listen, you know what, I'm trying to do the best that I can. It seems like so much to keep up with. How do I go about balancing this in my day-to-day life? I mean, I've got to incorporate it as a part of my day-to-day life because guess what? If you hack into my bank account and I don't have any money, it becomes an immediate problem whatsoever. But how can a person go about better incorporating this in their day-to-day life that just becomes part of the routine?
Yeah, so I think one of the it's not a fail safe either. Digital security is an ongoing and evolving thing we're going to have to keep an eye on. But a good step one, get a password manager. Again, you want to have unique passwords for every single account that you have in your personal and your work life. And usually enterprises have some kind of governance and mandates around the type of passwords that you can use and to make sure that they're unique. But step one, make sure you have different passwords for each account. Oh, how am I going to remember that? Great question. A password manager. That is like a nice, good one to make sure that all of your accounts are unique, but you still have access when you need it on your phone, on your laptop, without having to remember things or without having to rely on post-its on your laptops or your screen with your exposed password. So that's a good step one. Just unique passwords, password manager, making sure that you're doing an audit, going to checkyourexposure.com, seeing if you have been exposed in a breach. And those are good basic steps to have. Once you get that in your like routine and system, it becomes a lot easier to control how your digital footprint kind of grows out from there.
So, red flags and warning signs. I do want to talk about that for a second. That many times we miss the red flags and we miss the warning signs. What are they?
So red flags, usually it is attempted access. It could be like a credential stuffing attack if larger scale identities have been exposed in a breach. But the initial one is always attempted access. And again, whether that is for a single individual within your enterprise, it is multiple individuals in an enterprise, attempted access to your organization or to your accounts. That is not you, that is not your location, that is not your device, that is anomalous beyond what you do in your day to day. That is a good step one, that something's going on and you should probably change passwords so people cannot get access.
Yeah.
So you can terminate the sessions and make sure that no one that shouldn't be in there can get in there.
I got to get to this before we wrap. SpyCloud helps people in terms of having that account take over. I want you to just share a little bit about that. If somebody's, the work that you're doing there.
Yeah, so if you're looking to prevent ransomware and prevent account takeover or fraudulent transactions tied around protecting digital identities, and that includes everything past and present, um, what we do is identity threat protection that scales different elements of your organization to protect your employees, to protect your consumers from those targeted identity attacks, but also allows you to investigate further so you can stop fraud, stop ATO, and prevent bad actors from getting access to your corporate network.
Yeah, Colette Tomasiak, we got to leave it there, but I do want to get you to say two things before we go. Number one, biggest mistake people make. Number two, biggest thing people should remember.
Biggest thing people should remember is that breaches will happen, and it's a matter of ensuring that your passwords are diverse now, they're unique to different accounts, and that you're using some sort of password manager to make sure that you have control over your digital network and identity.
All right. You set me straight when we first got started. She checked me. She said it's not if, it's when. And so I think that's really important for us to remember. Thank you so much for being with us, Colette.
Thank you so much.
All righty. Now, if you want more information about Colette and SpyCloud, do me a favor. Visit the website at spycloud.com. We encourage you don't go anywhere. We'll be back with more Open. That's coming up right after this.